was why he tied her up, to keep her safe. I won't lay a finger on you, I promise, Ethan said. Just hang in there until the drugs wear off. Then he just went over to the metal cot and fell fast asleep. While Ethan was sleeping, something crazy happened. A bright golden light burst out around his body, mysterious ancient letters and a golden fish pattern appeared in the air. A golden halo wrapped around him completely. Glowing words appeared, the Azure Ascension technique. Outside, the clouds shifted as the morning sun hit the room. Ethan woke up with a start, clutching his head in pain. It felt like a mountain of information was forced into his brain. The clearest part was that mysterious Azure Ascension technique. Before he could process it, Chloe, the wealthy heiress, finally snapped. "Untie me right now," she barked after being bound all night. Ethan jumped, scrambled out of bed, and nervously rushed to free her. As soon as the ropes fell, Chloe rubbed her inner energy was already an elite, untouchable level. Ethan listened while flipping through an old martial arts book on the table. "Is this stuff really that hard to learn?" Ethan asked casually. Harry nearly jumped out of his skin. "Of course it is hard. Most people never even scratch the surface. If you didn't guide me, I wouldn't break through before 30. In Harry's eyes, Ethan had to be a secret prince from a hidden elite clan. But as Ethan flipped through the old pages, his inner power resonated with the book. Suddenly, a blinding golden light erupted from his body with a roaring sound. Harry's eyes popped out. He covered his mouth and fell flat on his butt, trembling, energy absorption, turning into pure gold. "Oh my god, this is the sign of a grandmaster breaking through. Boss, you are a literal god." Meanwhile, a storm was brewing in the main living room. George, the head of the family, stood in the center, furious. He slammed his cane, pointing aggressively at Ethan and Chloe. The mother, Sarah, sat on the luxury sofa, pale with anger. She screamed at Chloe, asking if she had lost her mind. "How could you marry a broke, Troyus?" George was shaking with rage, pointing right at him so fast, he left an afterimage. His hand whipped forward, creating a gust of wind. With a loud bang, he blocked his father's full-force strike with one bare hand. The impact sent a shockwave through the room, kicking up smoke. Everyone watching was totally paralyzed with shock. "Stop this madness, give the family sword back," George roared. He looked at Ethan with absolute disgust, but Ethan stayed completely cool and raised an eyebrow at his father-in-law. "Sir, what if I actually pull the sword out? If you can pull out the dragon-scale blade, I'll call you Big Brother," George laughed. Harry got excited and immediately chimed in. "Are you serious, Dad?" Of course. Powerful Ethan was, his mind spun. He tossed the sword to Harry and turned back to Ethan with a huge laugh. "Ha ha ha, don't call me sir." George wrapped his arm around Ethan's shoulder. "From now on, you are my big brother. I am your second brother." Ethan was completely stunned. "Sir, please, that is crazy." The uncle was losing his mind. "George, what the hell are you doing?" the mother yelled. "Have you lost your mind?" George turned around and barked at the family. "All of you shut up. I keep my promises. He is my big brother now." Then he turned back and gave Ethan a deep formal bow. "Please accept my deepest respect, big brother." Ethan backed away in panic, looking at his wife. "Chloe, stop your dad." Chloe was completely speechless. "Dad, stop acting ridiculous. Stand up." George grabbed Ethan's hand with a sly, shameless grin. "Tell you what, we'll talk dynamic. You call me Dad, I call you Big Brother." While the room was in total chaos, a young guard rushed in. "Sir, Tyler Miller is here," crashing hard and vomiting blood. The camera cut to Ethan waking up in bed, with a gasp, sweating like he saw a ghost. He looked up and saw Chloe standing there in her nightgown. "What are you doing in my room?" Ethan asked, totally dazed. Chloe rolled her eyes. "We're married, remember?" Then, she looked at him with intense suspicion. "Are you a primordial master?" she demanded. It turned out Ethan had actually broken through his power levels while sleeping. His body had shown the legendary signs of a primordial breakthrough. Pure cosmic energy had cleansed his system, turning his force into true ancient power. Chloe was floored. A master this young was unheard of, but Ethan was completely clueless. "I told you I don't do martial arts." Instead, he leaned in closer. "Hey, is that bonus money for having kids actually real millions for twins?" Back in the main hall of the venue, Miranda was furious. When George arrived, she immediately demanded he punish Ethan. "Do it, and I'll let your family be our house dogs after the Millers crush you." George sneered, walked up, and slapped Miranda right across the face. "How dare you insult my big brother? You have a death wish," George yelled. The crowd gasped, whispering that the Jones family had lost their minds. They had beaten Miranda's guards and slapped the heiress. They were doomed. As things got intense, Harry kept talking trash in the background. "The Millers are nothing compared to my brother-in-law." Suddenly, a deep voice echoed through the room. "Hold it right there. Mayor Vance walked in with his daughter Veronica and a squad of elite guards. He was now the official chosen heir of the Viper Order. The crowd was stunned by the announcement. A title like that carried massive weight across the entire country. He truly was the golden boy of Boston, and the Griffin family was about to skyrocket. Riding on his brother's coattails, Brandon Griffin arrogantly shouted at Jessica Vance. He asked her if she finally saw who the real prodigy was. He claimed his brother was a future grandmaster, destined for the absolute top. He mocked Jessica for throwing away her chance to marry into the Griffin family, asking if she regretted it. Jessica just sneered, replying that the Griffins weren't worth her regret. Seeing her attitude, Chris barked that the Vance family was getting too cocky. He ordered them to drop to their knees immediately. Right then, Arthur stepped in front of Chris, and Leo stepped forward too. Brandon looked at Leo with utter disdain. He asked what kind of nobody Leo thought he was to stand up for his wife. Arthur quietly slipped something into Leo's hand. Leo realized his father-in-law had already taken care of everything. Since the stage was set, Leo decided to go all out. He walked to the center of the ring and made a bold declaration. "If you want to challenge the Vance family, come at me all at once. I'll take on everyone." The crowd erupted in anger at his arrogance. They shouted insults, calling him a low-life security guard who didn't know his place. Several people yelled about stepping up to break his jaw and knock his teeth out. Kyle asked Jessica nervously if his brother-in-law was always this wild. Jessica sighed and nodded, admitting that he usually was. Kyle wrung his hands, asking why she wasn't stopping him. Leo was literally challenging every single prominent family in Boston. Nearby, Raymond Vance urged Arthur to pull his son-in-law back. He argued that a guy who only knew medical therapy couldn't possibly beat trained fighters. Arthur calmly told everyone to relax. He said fighting was actually Leo's real trade, and medicine was just a side hobby. Frank Miller, head of the Miller family, couldn't take it anymore and leaped onto the stage. He squared up and announced himself as the head of the Miller clan, ready to teach him a lesson. Leo casually made up a ridiculous name for his style, calling it the dragon-slaying Palm Brandon, and his crew burst into roaring laughter. They mocked him, asking if he was going to pull out moves from a comic book next. Frank sneered, saying a street thug was just a street thug who read too many stories. Brandon shouted at Frank to just break Leo's legs already. Frank immediately launched an aggressive attack. Kyle cheered from below, telling his brother-in-law to smoke him. Leo decided to show them what real power looked like. The moment Frank lunged forward, Leo unleashed a devastating counter-strike. A massive shockwave erupted from his palm, sending Frank flying backward. Frank crashed heavily onto the floor, coughing up blood. The entire room fell dead silent. Brandon and Jessica looked on in absolute disbelief. Arthur warned Leo not to get careless. He reminded him that Chris was the Viper Order's heir, possessing elite-level power. Brandon, furious over his fighter's defeat, snapped that Leo was just hiding behind others. Chris stepped forward, staring coldly at Leo. He asked if this was what Boston's best looked like, challenging Leo to step up. Brandon kept instigating from the sidelines, shouting trash talk. The heads of the other major families misjudged the situation. They figured Leo used up all his energy in that single flashy move. To keep the Vance family down, they decided to rush him together. Leo just smiled, flipped his thumb down, and told them they were all garbage. The elite fighters were completely enraged and leaped onto the stage to surround him. Leo didn't even flinch as he executed a massive sweeping area attack. A golden burst of energy rippled outward, blasting every single attacker off the stage. The fighters crashed violently into the walls and furniture, coughing up blood. Shock gripped the venue once again. Jessica and Brandon were completely frozen in shock. Arthur gave Leo a big thumbs up. He praised Leo for being a master of both medicine and combat, a true prodigy destined for greatness. Leo calmly brushed the dust off his jacket and looked down at the crowd. "Stop wasting my time. All of you, come at me together." The remaining family heads completely lost their cool at the disrespect. They cursed him out, calling him a cocky bastard who was just riding his father-in-law's coat. Tails, the leaders of the remaining syndicates, roared and closed in on him. They surrounded Leo in the center of the ring, determined to put him down. Below the stage, Chris and Brandon wore sinister, satisfied grins. The atmosphere on the ring was incredibly tense. Chris stood with his hands behind his back, looking completely arrogant. He glared at Leo and shouted, "If you want to die so badly, I'll show you real peak power. I am completely invincible against anyone below a grandmaster." Below the stage, Gary Vance and a white-haired elder exchanged a knowing smile at his ignorance. Seeing no reaction from Leo, Chris figured he was frozen in fear. He roared, "Die!" Green energy flared around his body as he threw a full power punch directly at Leo's face, but faced with a strike that could shatter concrete, Leo didn't even blink. He casually raised his right hand. With a dull thud, the green energy instantly vanished. Leo stopped Chris's ultimate punch effortlessly with a single hand. The audience looked like their eyes were about to pop out of their heads. The noisy venue instantly fell dead silent. Brandon couldn't accept reality and started screaming from the sidelines, "Leo is just playing around, right? Quit screwing with him and finish him." On stage, Chris was completely panicking inside. No matter how hard he pulled, his right hand was completely locked in place like it was in a hydraulic press. Leo looked at Chris, whose face was turning purple with veins popping out. Leo let out a cold laugh and gave a slight push. That seemingly effortless shove carried the weight of a tidal wave. Chris didn't even have time to scream before he flew across the room. He crashed hard onto the red carpet and slid several yards. Leo casually clapped his hands clean, looking down at him with pure contempt. "The prodigy of Boston, please, is that all you've got?" Chris lay on the ground, spitting blood, filled with terror and rage. The trust fund kids and socialites in the crowd were scared out of their minds. "You are crossing the line, Leo, this is completely unacceptable." Leo turned around with a mocking smile, shutting him down instantly. "I am crossing the line. When your family ruled Boston and bullied everyone, did you care about lines? Now that the tables are turned, you want to talk to me about fairness?" Leo suddenly pointed right at his face and barked, "If you've got a problem, step into the ring right now." Brandon completely lost his nerve, remembering how his brother just got crushed. His face went pale as he waved his hands and backed away rapidly. "No way, I am not getting up there." But Leo wasn't about to let him slide. He jumped off the stage and walked straight toward him. Brandon completely broke down, abandoning all his pride as a wealthy heir. He ran through the crowd like a terrified animal, crying out loud, "I submit, I yield, just stay away from me." Leo clapped his hands together, completely bored by the cowardice. He looked around at the wealthy elites who were suddenly too scared to make eye contact. Is there seriously not a single real man left in the Griffin family? The entire venue was completely silent. Brandon huddled in a far corner, shaking like a leaf. "What more do you want from us?" Leo shrugged and smiled. "Nothing much, just following the tournament rules for a friendly match. But the rules say only direct family members can participate." Chris croaked out weakly from the floor, "There are only 2 of us left in the main line." Leo looked incredibly disappointed and let out a heavy sigh. "Man, what a buzzkill. I thought I was going to win your entire family fortune tonight." Chris managed to stand up looking absolutely pathetic as his brother supported him. Even though he was beaten to a pulp, he still glared at Leo with pure hatred. "Don't celebrate just yet, Leo, just wait until I get back to the Viper Order. Once my master comes down that mountain, your family is completely finished." Leo didn't care about the empty threat at all, responding with absolute dominance. "I don't give a damn about your Viper Order. Go tell your master something for me. If he ever bothers my father-in-law again, I'll personally tear your entire headquarters down." Realizing their threats weren't working, the brothers left the venue in complete shame. With the Griffin family gone, the power dynamic in Boston shifted completely. The worried elder walked up to Gary and whispered his concerns. "Sir, Leo completely insulted the Viper Order today. Won't this bring total disaster to us?" Gary put his hands on his hips and boasted loudly so the whole room could hear. "Disaster? You don't know anything. Did you see the look in Leo's eyes when they mentioned that group? He completely looked down on them. That means his real background makes the Viper Order look like nothing." The guests and local leaders began whispering, looking at Leo with newfound respect. They realized he was a once-in-a-generation talent with massive backing. Leo walked back over, and Gary immediately rushed forward like he found a long-lost brother. He gave Leo a massive bear hug with actual tears of joy in his eyes. His brother joined in, and the 3 of them shared a tight embrace. Gary was celebrating wildly in his mind. With an incredibly powerful brother and a brilliant father, his dream of living a lazy life of luxury was secured. On the other side of the room, the wealthy heirs looked incredibly uncomfortable. Seeing the Griffin family fall, the young masters of the Miller and Davis families exchanged a look. They realized the Vance family was running the city now. They immediately ran over to Gary with fake smiles, bowing incredibly low. "Congratulations, Mr. Vance, the city is yours now. We hope you can look out for us down the road." Gary thoroughly enjoyed the flattery, laughing out loud as he waved them off. Of course. However, the young men quickly turned their attention to Jessica, who stood there looking stunning. The heirs whispered to each other with pure jealousy. "That Leo guy is just a street guard. He is obviously just a temporary shield for the family. Now that the Griffins are done, he has outlived his usefulness. A regular guard doesn't deserve her." Thinking they figured out the game, they adjusted their ties and walked over to Jessica. They bowed smoothly, putting on their best charming personas to invite her out. "Miss Vance, we've admired you for a long time. Would you honor us with dinner tonight?" Leo noticed the blatant disrespect immediately. His cool, composed demeanor vanished instantly as panic washed over his face. "Oh, come on, these jerks are trying to steal my wife." Leo rushed over, throwing his arm around Jessica's shoulder to pull her close. He glared at the heirs and barked at them angrily. "Do you guys have any respect for the rules? Seriously, where are your manners? Trying to hit on a married woman? Have you no shame?" The heirs saw how frantic he looked, which only made them more certain he was just a nobody. They sneered, mocking him for thinking a low-level guard belonged with someone like Jessica. Before Leo could snap, Jessica gave him a cold look. She rolled her eyes, pushed his hand away, and sighed. "Stop acting all the time, I am done." She turned right around and walked away in her high heels without looking back. Leo stood there completely stunned. The heirs burst into mocking laughter, telling Leo to get lost. Leo watched his wife walk away, feeling incredibly miserable. He panicked internally, thinking his dream of a comfortable life with a massive inheritance was slipping away. He knew he couldn't lose her now. Leo bit the bullet, ran over to Gary, and completely abandoned his dignity. He grabbed Gary's leg and screamed dramatically for the whole room to hear. "Dad, bro, you've got to help me. These jerks are trying to steal your daughter-in-law." Gary was chatting happily until he felt someone grabbing his leg and saw Leo's miserable face. His smile vanished instantly. He turned around slowly, his face becoming incredibly dark and menacing. He stared at the heirs like they were already dead. Feeling the terrifying pressure, the smiles on the young men's faces froze instantly. A cold sweat broke out across their skin. Gary patted Leo's shoulder, telling him to stand up, his voice dead serious. "Don't worry, son, as long as I am here, nobody touches her." Gary stepped forward like an angry lion, roaring at the young men. "Let's see who has the guts to try and take my son-in-law's wife." Leo immediately hid behind Gary, changing his expression to a smug grin as he pointed at them. "Yeah, Dad, it was them, those guys right there." The Miller heir trembled, trying to use his family connection to calm things down. "Mr. Vance, this is just a misunderstanding." Before he could finish, Gary delivered a massive slap across his face. The force of the strike spun the young man around before he crashed onto the floor. Gary pointed a finger and snapped, "Shut your mouth, you think you are qualified to talk to me?" The Davis heir panicked and tried to slip away, but Gary lunged forward and grabbed his collar. Another hard slap left the young man seeing stars. Gary threw him aside like trash and yelled at the group, "Where did you pieces of garbage even come from? Look at yourselves in the mirror. You are pathetic, and you think you can court my daughter and disrespect my son-in-law. Who gave you the right?" Gary stood tall in the center of the room, his overwhelming aura silencing everyone. He took a deep breath and announced to the entire guest list, "Let me make this absolutely clear today. I will only ever have one son-in-law. Do you all understand me? Now get the hell out of my sight." The old man's display of power left the room completely silent. Standing at a distance, Jessica's cold expression finally softened into a sweet smile. Leo and Gary's brother rushed over, and the three men shared another triumphant embrace. The city officially belonged to the Vance family now. The battle was over, and night fell across the city. The scene shifted to a much louder, casual setting. Leo and the Vance family were sitting around a table at a busy outdoor street food spot. The table was loaded with specific types of seafood and grilled greens meant for energy and stamina. His mother-in-law smiled warmly, placing a large piece of seafood into Leo's bowl. "You worked so hard at the tournament, that absolute idiot. He is like a block of wood. He ate all that specialized food at dinner, and he still won't make a move. My mom went through all that trouble for nothing." Getting angrier by the second, Jessica scoffed and decided she wasn't going to wait around anymore. She put on her slippers and walked out of the bedroom with determination. She walked down the quiet hallway and stopped right outside Leo's door. She took a deep breath, grabbed the golden handle, and turned it, but it wouldn't budge. The door was completely locked from the inside. Her expression froze, and she ground her teeth in frustration. "Leo, you jerk. I knew you'd lock the door again." In the past, she might have just walked away angry, but tonight, she came prepared. Instead of storming off, she let out a confident smirk. She reached into her pocket and casually pulled out a golden spare key. She held the key up, looking at the closed door, with a triumphant, mischievous smile. No matter how strong he was in a fight, he wasn't escaping her tonight. Late into the night, inside the luxury estate, an incredibly bizarre scene was unfolding. The moment Jessica unlocked and pushed the door open, she saw Leo literally hovering in midair. A strange green mist wrapped around his entire body. Jessica gasped quietly, wondering if the old legends in the books were actually true. He had just reached a major milestone yesterday, and he was already advancing again today. He possessed the legendary, once-in-a-century prodigy physique. She couldn't believe she had ended up with someone this naturally gifted. Before she could celebrate, Leo suddenly yelled and snapped back down onto the mattress. He looked at her miserably, complaining that she kept giving him a heart attack in the middle of the night. Jessica stared at him with a complicated expression, amazed at how oblivious he was to his own talent. Just then faint rustling sounds came from right outside the bedroom door. Jessica pulled the door open quickly, catching Gary, her mother, and the mayor stacked on top of each other. Caught red-handed, the group immediately tried to act natural with some terrible excuses. One pointed out the window at the moon, another rambled about farm animal care, and the mayor brought up retirement homes. Jessica just rolled her eyes at the awful acting, turned around, and walked away. Down in the main living room, Gary eagerly questioned Leo about his secret connections. Leo looked completely confused, honestly telling him that he didn't have any hidden backing. He joked that his only crew was the 15-man security detail at his day job. Gary and the advisor looked at each other and laughed, assuming Leo was just playing dumb again. But Gary's laughter died down quickly as reality set in, and he practically started crying. He admitted that their family really couldn't handle the full wrath of the Viper Order. The mayor took off his glasses, watching Leo closely to see if he was hiding something. Leo kept insisting he didn't even know how to fight, while his mother panicked and suggested they pack up and run. The next morning, the mayor arrived at the Vance estate with his daughter to meet with Gary. He brought an urgent update stating that the entire Viper Order was moving their operations to the city. The Griffin family was officially acting as their local enforcement. Hearing this, Leo didn't seem worried at all, confidently stating that Gary's brilliant mind would handle it easily. Gary grew more confused, asking Leo if he belonged to the legendary Sentinel Shield organization. Jessica watched silently, while Leo waved his hands frantically, telling them to stop joking around. He kept arguing that a simple security guard stood no chance against an elite grandmaster. Before they could finish arguing, a loud voice announced the arrival of another major family leader. Andrew Miller, head of one of the 4 dominant regional syndicates, walked into the room. The mayor and Gary immediately rushed over to greet their biggest ally with flattery. But Andrew didn't even sit down, keeping his hands behind his back as he demanded to see the family's secret master. Gary quickly pushed Leo forward, introducing him as their protector. Andrew let out a harsh laugh, instantly calling out the lie based on his background check. He stated clearly that Leo was just an ordinary security guard who had never received proper training. Andrew snapped at Gary for playing him for a fool, causing Gary to collapse onto the sofa in despair. Everyone turned to look at Leo, who could only tell them to look to Gary for a solution. Gary completely lost hope, crying out that the Viper Order was a ruthless top-tier syndicate. He reminded everyone that their leader was an absolute monster, meaning the Vance family was doomed. The mayor stepped in, trying to act like a savior by promising to use his connections with Andrew to help. His daughter sneered at Jessica, mocking her that a tough husband meant nothing when they needed her father to save them. Jessica didn't even look at her, coldly stating that Leo didn't need anyone's help. Leo panicked at her words, grabbing her arm and accusing her of trying to get him killed by a ruthless killer. Right then, Andrew lost his patience and coldly stated that his alliance with the mayor was officially over since he had already taken their local business assets. Andrew started dictating terms. He demanded that the entire Vance family prepare to beg for mercy and sign over all their remaining wealth. Gary's wife stared in shock, and though Gary felt humiliated, he could only bow his head in submission. Leo felt completely desperate, complaining that his comfortable lifestyle was over before it even started. Jessica just watched him coldly, convinced he was still putting on an act. Suddenly, Chris and his father kicked the doors open, leading a large group of armed men into the room. The father mocked the Vance family, asking where all that confidence from the tournament went. To save his family, Gary threw away his pride, crawling over to apologize and offering all their wealth for survival. However, the father wasn't interested in mercy, delivering a brutal slap that knocked Gary down. Chris walked up with a cruel smile, reminding them of the humiliation at the tournament and promising total ruin. Gary clutched his bruised face, continuing to beg for their lives. Chris completely lost his mind with power, ordering the entire family to kneel, so he could break their bones one by one. He joked that, if they entertained him enough, he might let them live as cripples. The entire Vance family looked completely terrified. Andrew couldn't watch anymore, and stepped in, telling Chris he was taking things too far. Chris kept his tone respectful, noting that Andrew had achieved great power, but things had changed. Andrew tried to use his status as an elder to settle the matter quietly. Chris's expression flipped instantly as he pointed at Andrew's face and told him he meant absolutely nothing. As a seasoned leader, Andrew had never experienced such disrespect, warning Chris that even his masters showed him courtesy. Faced with the warning, Chris just laughed and called out for his mentor. In an instant, Victor appeared out of thin air in the center of the room, cloaked in dark energy. Leo and Jessica turned pale at the sight of him. Before anyone could react, Victor waved his hand, releasing a massive wave of dark force. The impact sent Andrew flying across the room, crashing heavily against the wall and coughing up blood. Andrew lay broken on the floor, realizing in terror that Victor had achieved absolute peak power. His arrogance vanished completely as he dragged himself to his knees, begging to serve the Viper Order. Victor didn't even look at him. The enforcer's eyes went blank as he passed away, completely defeated by a regular security guard. Julian woke up in a daze, on a massive opulent bed draped in expensive furs. He stared blankly at Chloe, the woman who was gently wiping his brow with a warm towel. His mind was a tangled mess of confusion as he tried to figure out where he was. Hadn't he just taken his final breath in a cold, dark hospital room? Suddenly, a wave of clarity washed over him, and he realized he had been reborn back to 3 years ago. In this timeline, he was still the undisputed, untouchable heir to the massive Vance Empire. But looking at Chloe's gentle face, he knew her innocence was nothing but a calculated lie. She was a highly trained mole, planted by his ruthless half-siblings, Marcus and Victoria. Horrific memories of his tragic past life flooded his mind like a raging tidal wave. He remembered his lavish birthday party, where Chloe had stepped out of a giant gift box dressed as a pure angel. She had flashed a beautiful smile and handed him a glass of what he thought was vintage red wine. He had swallowed the deadly liquid without hesitation, only to be struck by a violent, agonizing pain. As he lay dying on the floor, Marcus's smug smile and Victoria's twisted laughter were seared into his memory. They had mocked him, whispering that the Vance fortune belonged to them, and that they would burn fake money for his ghost. Since fate had given him a miracle to start over, he swore to make them pay for that bloody debt tenfold. Julian looked coldly at Chloe, suddenly grabbed her wrists, and pinned her violently against the mattress. He ripped away her sweet submissive facade right then, and there without showing an ounce of mercy. He leaned in close, whispering that he already knew about Marcus and Victoria's pathetic conspiracy to ruin him. He warned her that if she showed even a shred of disloyalty, her fate would be worse than Secretary Evelyn's. Right at that moment, Victoria and Marcus strutted into the bedroom wearing tailored black suits. Victoria immediately adopted a condescending tone, demanding to know why he was abusing her personal assistant. Julian stood up with slow, deliberate grace, his eyes dripping with absolute contempt for the pair. He openly mocked their cheap tactics, throwing their shameless attempt at sexual entrapment right back in their faces. He reached out, grabbed a handful of Victoria's hair, and asked her with a smirk if she was just jealous. Victoria furiously slapped his hand away and loudly reminded him that she was his older sister. Julian suddenly clamped his fingers around her chin, squeezing so hard that her breath hitched in terror. He reminded her with chilling cruelty that she was merely an adopted orphan with absolutely no Vance blood in her veins. Then, he boldly demanded that Victoria step up and become his new personal secretary to replace Chloe. Just as the tension in the room reached a boiling point, a towering bodyguard knocked to say the chairman requested their presence. The luxury fleet of black SUVs tore through the city streets, heading straight for the massive Vance estate. Inside the grand mansion, Marcus was casually playing a game of pool, looking like he already owned the world. Secretary Evelyn stood right by his side, clapping her hands and showering him with fake sycophantic praise. The moment Julian walked through the double doors radiating pure power, the smile froze instantly on Evelyn's face. Marcus sat back on the leather sofa, looking incredibly smug and untouchable. Julian walked right up to him, looking down with a piercing gaze that could cut through steel. He coldly demanded to know what gave a pathetic loser like Marcus the right to sit in his presence. Before Marcus could even open his mouth, the foolish Evelyn jumped in to defend her secret lover. She sneered that the chairman was critically ill, meaning Julian was no longer the one running this family. She went even further, publicly insulting Julian as a reckless, incompetent playboy who was running the company into the ground. Julian's temper flared instantly, and he gave Chloe a ruthless, one-word command to teach her a lesson. A sharp, deafening slap echoed through the marble hall, sending Evelyn crashing brutally onto the floor. Marcus flew into a violent rage, jumping to his feet and screaming at Julian for crossing the line. The very next second, Julian's hand shot out like a vice, gripping Marcus's throat and slamming him back into the sofa. He looked Marcus dead in the eye and declared that as long as he drew breath, Marcus would never rise above him. Under the crushing weight of Julian's physical dominance, the arrogant Marcus could only choke out a submissive apology. Julian let out a triumphant laugh, spun around, and ordered his security team to drag the terrified Evelyn out of the building. But this explosive confrontation was merely the opening act of a massive corporate warback. In his private office, Chloe had changed into a compliance outfit and was trembling as she delivered her financial report. She confirmed that $300 million of company cash had been poured into the North Brooklyn redevelopment project. Chloe was utterly baffled by the move, noting that the entire city viewed that area as a bankrupt wasteland of abandoned buildings. She asked him if betting the firm's entire liquid capital on a ghost town wasn't a form of corporate suicide. Julian offered no explanation, merely flashing a dark, knowing smile as he casually toyed with the terrified mole. Shortly after, the chairman called for a mandatory emergency meeting, setting the stage for a brutal showdown. The frail, ailing patriarch sat in the center of the boardroom, looking exhausted by his children's constant bickering. Marcus and Victoria immediately went on the attack like a pair of rabid dogs looking for blood. Marcus mocked his brother for even having the nerve to show up, while Victoria eagerly fanned the flames of their father's anger. The chairman let out a heavy, disappointed sigh and asked Julian if he had truly thrown all their money into North Brooklyn. Julian admitted to the massive investment without showing a single hint of fear or regret. This confession gave Marcus the exact opening he wanted to humiliate his older brother in front of the board. He laughed hysterically, calling North Brooklyn a barren swamp that would bankrupt anyone foolish enough to buy it. Victoria chimed in, claiming that Julian's reckless spending would make the Vance family the biggest laughingstock in New York. Then, the greedy siblings finally exposed their true motives to their aging father. Victoria urged the chairman to strip Julian of his executive power and hand the CEO position over to the reliable Marcus. Julian just sat back in his chair, watching the pathetic duo put on their desperate little performance. He stood up slowly, chuckling as he mocked Marcus for having the business vision of a blind man. The chairman intervened with a booming voice, commanding Julian to liquidate the land immediately to salvage whatever pennies were left. But Julian defied his father's orders directly, shouting a firm and absolute refusal to sell a single acre. Marcus and Victoria immediately yelled at him for being an ungrateful son who was actively trying to give their father a heart attack. Just when the entire room believed Julian was utterly ruined, frantic footsteps echoed outside the heavy oak doors. Evelyn, looking completely disheveled and frantic, burst into the boardroom weeping in total despair. She screamed that a massive crisis had just hit the company, causing the chairman to grip his armrests in panic. She trembling announced a piece of news that felt like a localized earthquake to everyone sitting at the table. Due to a sudden, unannounced government zoning change, North Brooklyn had just been designated as a tax-free economic zone. The worthless properties hadn't depreciated. Instead, they had instantly transformed into a multi-billion-dollar gold mine. The smug smiles vanished from Marcus and Victoria's faces, leaving them looking like they had just swallowed broken glass. The chairman was so utterly shocked by the news that he stood up straight from his leather chair. In a display of absolute power and dominance, Julian calmly walked over to the weeping, terrified Evelyn. His cold, dead eyes stared down at her as if she were nothing more than a corpse waiting to be buried. He violently kicked a heavy mahogany chair aside, sending a loud crash through the room that made Evelyn convulse with fear. Julian casually took off his tailored jacket, tossed it onto the conference table, and picked up a heavy pool cue from the rack. He forced the hysterical woman down onto her knees, pinning her against the base of the chair. Without saying a single word, he swung the heavy wooden cue and smashed it ruthlessly across her feet. That pain was the exact cost of trying to stab him in the back. Julian looked down at the sobbing traitor and delivered a chilling instruction for her new life. He told her that from tomorrow on, she would address him as master, and she was never to wear flat shoes in his sight. After handling the traitor, Julian turned his terrifying, bloodthirsty gaze toward the trembling Chloe. He walked over, gently but dangerously lifted her chin with his fingers, and whispered a final warning. He promised her a life of unimaginable luxury if she stayed completely loyal to his cause, but he made it clear that if she ever crossed him, Evelyn's bloody feet would be her reality tomorrow. Chloe was so profoundly terrified that she froze solid, barely daring to draw a single breath. From that moment on, Julian Vance made it clear that New York was his personal kingdom. Everyone in the family thought Julian was backed into an inescapable corner, but this was the dawn of his reign. Back in the primary residence, Victoria was still screaming that Julian had thrown away $300 million. Marcus laughed along, calling Julian a useless parasite and ordering the guards to drag him out like trash. Julian stood up with an eerie calmness, walked right up to Evelyn, and asked with a smirk if her feet still ached. Evelyn averted her eyes in pure terror, casting a heavy, suffocating silence over the entire family gathering. Julian then completely took control of the room, showing his iron-fisted leadership. He commanded Chloe to immediately wire the remaining funds to the displaced residents of North Brooklyn. Chloe looked panicked, admitting that the corporate accounts had been completely drained by his previous trades. Julian didn't hesitate for a second, ordering her to instantly leverage 20% of his personal shares in Vance Enterprises. Marcus lost his mind and started screaming that Julian was dragging the entire conglomerate down into the dirt. Julian shut him down with a booming righteous roar that shook the walls. He shouted that those working-class families spent their entire lives saving for a home, and they deserved every single cent. He gave Chloe exactly 30 minutes to ensure every family received their payout without delay. Seeing Julian manipulate the core shares, Victoria begged their father to stop him, calling it an open rebellion against the board. Julian casually checked his luxury watch and let out a cold, mocking laugh. He noted it was exactly 9:55 a.m., meaning they were precisely 5 minutes away from a massive announcement. He predicted that the city would unveil the Financial Island project, causing North Brooklyn's value to exceed $5 billion. Marcus and Victoria laughed in his face, completely convinced that he was just a desperate man talking crazy. Julian offered them a high-stakes bet. If the land value didn't skyrocket, he would forfeit inherit his inheritance and leave forever. Those 5 minutes felt like an eternity as the clock ticked down to the final second. Just as Marcus opened his mouth to mock him, Chloe burst through the doors holding a stack of fresh documents. She was screaming with joy, telling Julian that their massive gamble had paid off beyond their wildest dreams. The official city press release confirmed that North Brooklyn's market cap had just surged to over $5 billion. Marcus stood frozen in place, frantically dialing his insider contacts to check if the news was actually real. When the voice on the other end confirmed the massive valuation, the color drained completely from his face. Julian had played them all and won the ultimate high-stakes gamble. Seeing his eldest son generate $5 billion in a single morning, the father's cold demeanor melted away instantly. He smiled warmly, patting Julian on the shoulder and praising him for possessing such a brilliant, visionary mind. However, Julian chose to play the long game, keeping his true genius hidden in the shadows. He requested his father tell the media that a mysterious financial guru named the Sleeping Dragon had orchestrated the deal. He intentionally concealed his power, revealing a dangerous level of strategic foresight that terrified his rivals. Blinded by Julian's sudden success, the chairman decided it was time to lock in his position with a massive merger. He demanded Julian honor the childhood arrangement and marry Harper Hayes to combine their massive empires. To everyone's absolute shock, Julian casually passed the golden opportunity over to his younger brother. He claimed he was far too busy managing the core business and suggested Marcus marry Harper instead. Later that evening, an enraged Marcus was seen by the outdoor pool, aggressively pulling Chloe by her hair. Julian arrived like a shadow, walked right up to Marcus, and delivered a devastating slap that echoed across the estate. Losing all sense of dignity, Marcus snapped and screamed that Chloe was just his personal plaything anyway. Julian's eyes went completely dead, and he grabbed Marcus by the throat, lifting him off his feet. Marcus gasped for air, trying to use his status as a legitimate son to threaten Julian's life. Julian didn't care at all, delivering a brutal kick that sent Marcus flying backward into the deep end of the swimming pool. Inside the dark executive office, Victoria and Evelyn were busy plotting their next move. Victoria refused to let Omnia Media fall into Julian's hands, ordering Evelyn to sabotage the company from within. Evelyn eagerly agreed to the plan, desperate to help Marcus reclaim his lost dignity. But they had absolutely no idea that Julian and Chloe were already standing quietly in the doorway, watching them. Julian smirked at the two scheming snakes, fully prepared to unleash a devastating storm upon them. Evelyn never anticipated that her elaborate plan to poison Julian's daily medication had been compromised from day one. Julian smiled coldly as he held up the swapped bottle, revealing that the lethal toxins had been replaced with a simple harmless liquid. Crushed by his overwhelming psychological pressure, Evelyn fell to her knees and begged him for mercy. Hoping to redeem herself, Evelyn brought Julian to a high-profile industry dinner for the upcoming blockbuster movie. Director Scott kept pouring drinks, while a stunning, ambitious young actress named Scarlett Sterling made her move on Julian. Halfway through the dinner, Evelyn excused herself, only to be dragged into the dark stairwell by a furious Marcus. Marcus, furious over the failed poisoning, ordered her to execute their backup plan to trap Julian in a career-ending sex scandal. But Marcus wasn't the only apex predator trying to put an end to Julian's rapid rise. Victoria slammed the office door open later that night, catching Julian and Evelyn in what looked like a highly compromising position. The moment Victoria left, Evelyn handed the poison bottle to her, revealing she was actually playing both sides of the family. However, when Evelyn returned to the office, Julian calmly pulled 2 more bottles of illegal substances from her designer purse. He issued a final terrifying warning, making it clear that working with Victoria again would result in her immediate disappearance. Now completely trapped by Julian's intelligence network, Evelyn was forced to bow down and refer to him as master. She reported that the studio had 2 major films, The Immortal Master and the ultimate warrior, both desperately needing funding. Marcus was heavily backing the first project, but Julian remembered from his past life that the ultimate warrior would make $3 billion to build his personal entertainment empire. Julian ignored the entire board and authorized a massive $500 million budget. The shocking investment news exploded across social media, instantly topping the global trending charts. While driving to the studio, Chloe warned Julian that the public thought he was insane, but Julian coldly told her to shut her mouth. Evelyn then called his cell, stating that director Scott was hosting an exclusive appreciation dinner at the Grand New York Hotel, but that lavish dinner was nothing more than a carefully coordinated honey trap designed to ruin his reputation. Inside a private luxury hot spring, Evelyn successfully convinced Scarlett to seduce Julian to guarantee her stardom. That night, Scarlett knocked on Julian's penthouse door, wearing a revealing white dress, and the two embraced tightly. The scene shifted back to the office, where Evelyn was trying to pour Julian another laced drink. Julian saw through the trap instantly, grabbed her wrist, and forced Evelyn to drink the tainted alcohol herself. As she coughed violently on the floor, Julian mocked her, telling her that her psychological defenses had completely shattered. The real trap was sprung the following night during a mandatory family dinner at the estate. The father slammed his fists onto the table in a blind rage, demanding to know why Julian wasted $500 million on a guaranteed flop. Marcus and Victoria eagerly fueled the old man's anger, and Marcus even brought Evelyn out to testify that the movie would fail. Marcus then triumphantly threw a series of hidden camera photos onto the table, claiming Julian bought the movie just to sleep with Scarlett. The chairman shook with uncontrollable rage, looking at his eldest son with deep disgust. Julian didn't waste time arguing. He simply lunged forward and pinned Marcus face first onto the dining table. He whispered into Marcus's ear, letting him know that he was fully aware of every single dollar he had stolen from the firm. The scene flashed back to that night, in the penthouse, where Julian had actually remained completely cold to Scarlett's advances. He had received his father's angry phone call, realized it was Marcus's setup, and thrown a $10 million check at Scarlett before kicking her out. Back in the boardroom, Chloe presented a confidential audit, revealing that Omnia Media had a massive multi-billion-dollar deficit. Marcus had intentionally dumped the dyeing company on Julian to cover up his own $5 billion embezzlement scheme. Julian stood in the sunlight, flashing a dangerous smile, as he prepared to use the movie to erase Marcus from the family permanently. The formal engagement gala with the billionaire Hayes family quickly devolved into chaos when Harper Hayes slammed her fists down. She loudly insulted Julian as a worthless, degenerate playboy in front of both patriarchs before storming out of the hall. Julian didn't flinch, coldly stating that aligning with the Vance family was the greatest privilege her family could ever hope for. Marcus pretended to comfort his brother, but was secretly celebrating, already plotting to steal Harper and her family's billions for himself. Back at the main office, the father threw the scandalous photos of Julian and Scarlett directly at his head. Marcus and Victoria stood by, accusing him of destroying the family's reputation with his reckless spending. Julian casually chuckled, mocking the poor lighting and angles of the hidden camera shots. Suddenly, a frantic secretary burst through the doors, screaming that top critics were boycotting the film, projecting a total loss. Marcus demanded Julian drop to his knees and beg their father for forgiveness. Julian remained completely unfazed, calmly predicting that the film would bring in over $20 billion globally. Marcus laughed hysterically at the claim, betting his entire inheritance that Julian would fail miserably. Meanwhile, Harper was ambushed and kidnapped right outside the elevator by a group of Marcus's mercenary thugs. Waking up tied to a chair in a dark room, she listened to Marcus expertly manipulate her anger against Julian. She blindly agreed to fund Marcus with $100 million to completely short Vance Enterprises and break the engagement. Marcus smiled like a demon, ready to use his private brokerage firm to crash his family's stock and destroy Julian. Julian forever. However, inside a quiet traditional tea room, Julian was calmly pouring an exquisite blend for Mr. Hayes. When Mr. Hayes mentioned the legendary Wall Street genius known only as the Sleeping Dragon, Julian calmly admitted it was him. Mr. Hayes was completely paralyzed with shock, realizing that the man the entire city mocked was actually a financial god. Marcus suddenly kicked the tea room doors open with his men, boasting that his massive short position had already succeeded. But then, Evelyn stepped forward with a confident smile and walked right behind Julian, revealing her true allegiance. Director Scott then sprinted into the room holding a live tablet, screaming that the Ultimate Warrior had just shattered every box office record. Furthermore, the world's largest investment conglomerate, Apex Global, had just injected $20 billion into the franchise. Marcus's massive short position blew up in a matter of seconds, completely bankrupting his firm and wiping out his entire net worth. The chairman arrived at the scene with his security detail, striking Marcus across the back with his heavy cane for his treason. Julian grabbed Marcus by the hair, throwing him onto the floor to teach him what real power looked like. A completely humbled Mr. Hayes dropped all his arrogance, bowing deeply to Julian and begging him to marry his daughter. Julian elegantly adjusted his tailored suit cuffs, coldly stating that they would take things one step at a time. The two fathers shook hands in compliance, leaving Julian standing alone as the absolute undisputed king of New York. High up in the penthouse office, Ethan stood completely motionless, watching the digital stock ticker. The market screens illuminated his face as the numbers kept plummeting into a deep red ocean. His assistant, Ryan, ran into the room with a stack of files, sweating bullets from pure panic. Sir, are we really doing this? If we inject all our remaining capital now, we could face absolute bankruptcy. Ethan didn't even blink. His face remained an unreadable mask of absolute confidence. He had already anticipated every single move his treacherous siblings were about to make. This whole situation was a calculated trap designed by his brother Julian and his sister Sophia. But their plan was incredibly simple yet lethal. Short the company stock, freeze his assets, and throw him out. Let them play their little games, Ethan muttered coldly, a sharp smile forming on his face. If they want to play dirty, I will blow up the entire board. You can't win the empire without taking risks. Right on cue, his private line started ringing, echoing through the silent office space. It was Julian, calling from his luxury yacht, completely intoxicated by his own perceived victory. Hey there, big brother. Julian laughed maniacally over the phone, the sound of glasses clinking in the background. How does it feel to watch your life's work bleed out on the market floor? It is over for you. Ethan didn't show a single hint of anger. His voice remained as cold as ice. Enjoy your little celebration while it lasts, Julian, because I can destroy your entire world in 5 seconds. But Julian was far too gone to hear the warning, convinced he held all the winning cards. You are broke, Ethan. I am liquidating your personal assets as we speak, and there is nothing you can do. Sitting across the desk, their billionaire partner, Arthur, was practically hyperventilating. He had gambled his entire family fortune and the future of his granddaughter, Chloe, on Ethan's strategy. Arthur slammed his fist onto the mahogany table, his voice cracking under the immense pressure. Ethan, look at the screen. The stock is frozen at absolute zero. We are going to lose everything. On the speakerphone, Julian's mocking laughter intensified, cutting through the tense atmosphere. Face reality, Ethan. Without your secret master advisor, the Phoenix, you are absolutely nothing. Yet surrounded by Julian's arrogant screams and Arthur's desperate doubts, Ethan remained completely calm. He calmly reached for his coffee cup, watching the countdown clock on the wall hit the final minute. Just when Julian thought the game was officially over, Ethan's encrypted phone lit up. It was his executive secretary calling directly from the International Banking Division. She delivered a single sentence that instantly shifted the gravity of the entire room. Sir, the $200 million from the Hollywood conglomerate has officially cleared our accounts. Ethan hung up the phone, a dangerous look appearing in his eyes as he looked at Arthur. 5 seconds, Ethan said quietly, counting down with his fingers. Watch the magic happen. Right at that moment, the frozen stock chart on the massive wall monitor did something impossible. The flat line suddenly ruptured, exploding upward like a waking monster breaking through chains. The massive red line shot up at a vertical angle, shattering all market resistance in a single breath. Back on his yacht, Julian's phone dropped from his hand as he stared at his tablet in pure horror. Sophia screamed in the background, unable to comprehend the massive numbers flashing before her eyes. $200 million of raw capital had just flooded the market, completely rewriting the system. Major financial institutions globally panicked and immediately started buying in, trying to catch the wave. Ethan had single-handedly resurrected the company from the dead, leaving his enemies completely destroyed. In less than a minute, Julian and Sophia's entire short position was completely liquidated into nothingness. Losing everything broke whatever sanity Julian had left in his twisted mind. Later that night, inside a dimly lit basement warehouse, the psychopath completely lost control. He had tied his own sister, Sophia, to a wooden chair, his hands wrapped tightly around her throat. "You ruined me." Julian screamed like a wild animal, his eyes bloodshot with pure hatred. "Why didn't you find out who the Phoenix was? You told me we had the upper hand." Sophia was crying hysterically, gasping for air as his grip tightened around her neck. "I did everything for you, Julian. I gave you everything." She choked out, suffocating, but Julian was completely blind to loyalty now, his mind consumed by total financial ruin. He violently ripped her purse away, grabbing her phone and dialing his corrupt offshore lawyers. "Liquidate Sophia's 10% shares right now. Sell it to anyone, just get me the cash." Meanwhile, across the city, in a serene and luxurious private estate, the atmosphere was completely different. Arthur sat across from Ethan, his hands trembling as he poured hot green tea into small ceramic cups. The old billionaire looked at the young man before him with a mixture of profound shock and deep respect. "I have been in this game for 50 years, Ethan, and I have never seen anything like that," Arthur whispered. "You used my family's market position as bait, forcing Julian to throw every dollar he had into the trap. But tell me," Arthur leaned in, his eyes wide, "how could you be so absolutely certain he would take the bait? And how did you know that movie production would bring in $500 million at the box office?" Ethan slowly lifted the cup to his lips, taking a quiet, measured sip as he looked out at the garden. Deep inside his mind, a truth flashed that no human being on earth would ever believe. He knew the exact outcome because he had lived through this entire timeline once before. In his past life, he watched this exact movie dominate the global box office and rewrite history, but that was a terrifying secret he would have to carry to his grave, never to be spoken aloud. He set the cup down and smiled softly. "Let's just say I did some basic market analysis." Arthur, Ethan slowly adjusted his silk collar, standing before a gold-framed mirror. His foster daughter, Natalie, stood by the doorway, her hands tightly wrung together in deep anxiety. "Ethan, please tell me the truth. Are you finally going to step in and save the family legacy?" Ethan let out a cold, sharp laugh, turning around to look at her with an absolute sense of authority. "Relax, Natalie. At the end of the day, you need to remember you are just an adopted daughter here. But me, I am the sole heir and the rightful owner of the entire corporate empire. My little brother Julian thinks he can play chess behind my back, but I saw through his moves months ago. The entire board has been under my control since day one, and he is just walking into his cage." The scene shifted to the Grand family estate, where Ethan Ethan walked into his father's private study. His father, the old chairman, sat in a leather armchair, looking incredibly fragile and exhausted. Ethan walked over, his expression softening slightly as he stood beside the man who built the foundation. The old man let out a deep, heavy sigh, staring blankly at the fireplace. "Ethan, I don't know what kind of monster is targeting us, but they know our every move before we make it." Ethan knew that throwing accusations around without hard evidence wouldn't work on his father. Family blood ran deep, and the old man would never believe his youngest son was a traitor without seeing it. "Don't worry, father," Ethan said softly, checking his watch. "The truth always reveals itself." Meanwhile, on the other side of Manhattan, a massive media circus was taking place in a luxury hotel ballroom. Chloe, the prominent heiress, stood at the center of a stage surrounded by flashing cameras and shouting reporters. She stood with her arms crossed, her chin held high with an insufferable amount of pride and arrogance. "I am announcing today that my engagement to Ethan is officially and permanently terminated," she declared into the microphone. "I will never marry a useless, trust-fund playboy who hides behind his family's money. The only man worthy of my respect is the legendary master investor known across the globe as the Phoenix." She smiled for the cameras, basking in the applause and the media frenzy she had just created. She had absolutely no idea that the very man she was publicly humiliating was standing right in the shadows backstage. Ethan stood perfectly still in his tailored suit, watching her pathetic performance with absolute amusement. As Chloe walked off the stage, feeling completely victorious, she ran right into Ethan in the private hallway. She immediately scoffed, rolling eyes as she tried to brush past him with her usual attitude. "What are you doing here, Ethan? Come to beg me to change my mind. It is too late for that." Ethan didn't move an inch. He simply blocked her path, his eyes locking onto hers with a terrifying intensity. "You really thought you could destroy my family right under my nose, Chloe? You think I don't know about your deal with Julian?" The color instantly drained from Chloe's face, her arrogant smile vanishing as absolute fear took over. Before she could utter a single lie, the phone in her hand began vibrating violently, ringing at maximum volume. It was her father, the patriarch of her family, and his voice was screaming so loud it could be heard through the speaker. "What the hell did you just do on live television?" the old man roared, completely losing his mind. "You fix this right now. You marry Ethan even if you have to crawl on your knees, or our entire family goes bankrupt by tomorrow." Chloe stood frozen in the middle of the hallway, her phone feeling like 1,000 pounds of solid lead. At that exact moment, the final trap was closing tight inside the corporate headquarters. Julian was trapped inside his executive office, throwing glass bottles against the wall and screaming hysterically. "You set me up!" Julian shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Ethan, who had just walked through the door. "You and that old man Arthur ruined my trades. I am the rightful heir to this company, not you." He was completely psychotic now, spitting words of pure venom as his world crumbled around him. "I am going to bury you, Ethan. I am going to bury you and that old man together and take what is mine." But as Julian took a step forward, his entire body suddenly locked up, his voice catching in his throat. The heavy mahogany doors behind Ethan slowly slid open, revealing a figure standing under the bright lights. It was their father, holding his silver cane, his face completely pale with absolute rage and betrayal. Ethan had set up a live audio feed in the room next door. The old chairman had heard every single disgusting word. The old man's hand shook with fury as he stared at his youngest son. "You absolute monster," he whispered. "From this second forward, everything we own, every company, every asset, belongs entirely to Ethan." Later that evening, Ethan stood by his father's side back at the estate, reviewing the security files. He quietly pulled up the footage from the underground warehouse, showing Julian's assault on Sophia. The video played silently, showing the absolute brutality brutality of his younger brother before security forces intervened. The old chairman stared at the screen, tears welling in his eyes as he realized how evil his own blood had become. He let out a weak, broken sigh, turning his face away from the monitor. "Just show him some mercy, Ethan." Ethan nodded his head slowly, keeping his expression neutral. "I'll make sure he has a roof over his head, Father, but you need to rest. I've arranged a private flight to our estate in Miami. The best medical team is waiting there." As his father left the room, Ethan turned toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking over the city lights. The clouds were finally clearing, and the kingdom was completely his. Desperate, broke, and driven completely insane by his losses, Julian resorted to the ultimate betrayal. He drove deep into the criminal underbelly of the city, entering the compound of the most dangerous gang, the Vipers. He slammed a forged corporate authorization document onto the table, staring directly at the ruthless mob boss. "I need $100 million cash by tonight," Julian demanded, his voice trembling with manic energy. The mob boss simply laughed, blowing cigar smoke directly into Julian's face. "And what are you putting up as collateral, kid?" "My 10% shares in the conglomerate," Julian snarled, pulling out an encrypted drive. "It is worth triple that amount." Then his face twisted into a mask of pure unadulterated hatred as he slid a photograph across the table. The photograph showed Ethan walking out of a business meeting, looking powerful and completely untouchable. "I want him gone," Julian whispered, his teeth grinding. "Put a bullet in his head, and the money is yours." However, Julian's pathetic delusions of grandeur were about to come crashing down in spectacular fashion. The very next morning, the corporate boardroom was filled with absolute chaos and whispered conspiracies. The corrupt board members, bribed by Julian's promises of massive payouts, were huddled around the table. They were openly discussing a corporate coup, ready to force Ethan out of the chairman's seat by any means necessary. But their whispers were instantly cut short as the heavy double doors were violently kicked open from the outside. Ethan walked in alone, slowly unbuttoning his suit jacket, his presence commanding absolute silence. Julian was sitting high and mighty in the center leather chair, his feet propped up on the pristine glass table. The crooked family butler, Marcus, stepped forward, slamming his hand down to show his authority. "That is enough, Ethan. Julian has the signatures. You are no longer running this boardroom, so get out." Before Marcus could even finish his breath, Ethan's arm moved with lightning speed, delivering a massive backhand. The impact echoed through the room like a gunshot, sending Marcus crashing hard onto the floor. Ethan looked down at the bleeding man, with eyes full of absolute disgust. A dog shouldn't speak when the master is talking. Julian exploded with rage, jumping to his feet and reaching into his jacket. "You think you can come in here and—" But before Julian could even stand fully upright, Ethan's second slap landed squarely across his jaw. The force of the blow slammed Julian back onto the conference table, breaking the expensive glass center. Ethan grabbed him by the throat, pinning him down effortlessly. "You think these old men can save you from me?" Just as the corrupt board members prepared to call their private security, the boardroom doors were smashed open again. Sophia walked into the room, her clothes stained with dirt, but her posture completely rigid and filled with anger. The board members gasped in unison, staring at the heiress they all assumed was dead or locked away forever. "Look at him," Sophia shouted, pointing at Julian, who was struggling beneath Ethan's grip. "He locked me in a basement. He tried to suffocate me just to forge my signature and sell my shares." Cornered and completely exposed, Julian went entirely feral, screaming obscenities at the top of his lungs. "So what? The old man is basically dead anyway. Once he is gone, everything belongs to me." But right as those words left his mouth, a shadow fell over the threshold of the boardroom doors. The old chairman walked in, backed by a dozen heavily heavily armed tactical security guards, his cane slamming against the floor. Julian's eyes went completely wide with horror, his legs giving out as he fell onto his knees. The father looked down at his youngest son with total disappointment. The empire belongs to Ethan. You are finished. Inside the quiet, locked boardroom, Marcus was groveling on the floor, weeping and begging for forgiveness. It was all my fault, sir. Julian forced me into it. Please don't ruin my life, Marcus cried out. Ethan didn't even look down at him. He simply tossed a stack of legal documents onto the table. Save your breath, Marcus. I bought your debt 3 hours ago. You and Julian are completely wiped out. Julian, your 10% shares are already in my account, and the Vipers are coming for their 100 million. Ethan turned to his security team. Throw them out into the street. Let them see what it is like to be nothing. Sitting in the corner, the old chairman let out a loud, proud laugh, shaking his head at his eldest son. With the absolute power of the Phoenix in your hands, these amateurs never stood a single chance, Ethan. Hearing that legendary name, Julian's entire body went rigid, realizing he had been fighting a god this whole time. Cast out into the freezing rain, Julian didn't even make it 2 blocks before a black SUV pulled up. The Vipers dragged him into the back, bringing him face to face with the ruthless mob boss. Julian was beaten within an inch of his life, his face covered in blood as he begged for another chance. The mob boss grabbed him by the hair, pressing a loaded firearm into his trembling hands. You want your life back, kid. You go to that rooftop gala tonight, and you put a bullet in your brother's chest. Meanwhile, at the grand rooftop celebration, Chloe was trying desperately to regain her dignity. She approached Ethan with a fake smile, trying to challenge him to one final high-stakes business bet. $300 million, Ethan. Let's see who can generate that capital first within 72 hours. Ethan didn't even turn his head to look at her, simply staring out at the breathtaking New York skyline. The game ended before you even walked outside. Chloe, your entire family asset belongs to me now. How can you be so arrogant? She hissed, her pride shattered. Who do you think you are? Ethan finally turned around, his eyes piercing through her soul. Because I am the Phoenix. Chloe stumbled backward, her breath completely catching in her throat as the terrifying reality hit her. Later that night, realizing the magnitude of the man before her, she tearfully accepted his terms and proposal. But right in the middle of their toast, the glass balcony shattered as a high-caliber bullet ripped through the air. Ethan, watch out! Chloe screamed, her instincts taking over as she threw her body directly into the line of fire. The bullet tore into her shoulder, and she collapsed into Ethan's arms, unconscious and bleeding rapidly. Ethan's eyes turned crimson with pure rage as he screamed for his medical team to take her to the hospital. Through the smoke, Julian appeared on the rooftop, his hands shaking violently as he pointed a gun at Ethan. Why won't you just die? Julian screamed hysterically, pulling the trigger multiple times. The bullets hit Ethan's chest, but they simply deflected, leaving nothing but minor marks on his custom suit. Ethan didn't even flinch. He was wearing advanced tactical body armor beneath his clothes. Before Julian could reload, Ethan's security team swarmed the roof, tackling Julian and slamming him to the ground. Julian wept like a child completely broken by the absolute crushing display of superior power. Ethan walked over, looking down at his pathetic brother. You are sick, Julian. You've completely lost your mind. He gestured to a team of specialized medical doctors waiting in the back. Take him to the high security ward. Permanently. Months later, after the chaos had settled, Chloe made a full recovery under the care of the world's best surgeons. At the grand corporate inauguration gala, Arthur proudly stood on the stage, handing his granddaughter's hand to Ethan. The crowd of thousands erupted into deafening applause as Ethan stepped up to the gold podium. He adjusted his microphone, looking out over the global audience with absolute authority. Today, the old regime is officially dead, the empire is united, and our era has officially begun. Inside a quiet New York cafe, Chloe sat in her Uber driver vest. She stared at the man across from her. He was incredibly incredibly handsome and looked familiar, but she couldn't place him. The man was Ryan Vance. He was the CEO of the Vance Group. Ryan checked his watch coldly. I don't have all day. Let's go. Chloe felt uneasy. Was her blind date always this cold? Did she sit at the wrong table? Ryan had his own hidden agenda. Chloe was gorgeous and elegant. More importantly, he didn't hate her touch. Marrying her would please his sick grandmother. It might even save the old woman's life. Chloe asked nervously. You know my situation, right? Ryan didn't hesitate. I know, and I accept it. Can we get the marriage license now? Chloe was straightforward. Since he didn't mind, she was all in. Neither noticed the young man at table 68. He wore a suit, had a middle part, and drank his coffee quietly. Soon, they walked out of City Hall. Chloe looked at the marriage certificate. It all felt like a bizarre dream. She was officially married to a stranger. Ryan saw her zoning out. What is on your mind? Chloe waved the certificate. Who keeps this? Ryan was casual. You keep it for now. He turned toward his luxury car. Chloe followed quickly. She wanted to make sure he knew the truth about her past, but Ryan didn't care to listen. He opened his car door. Need a ride? Chloe waved her hands. No, I am good. Ryan took her phone. He smoothly typed in his number. Call me if you need anything. Then he drove away in a cloud of dust. Chloe opened her contacts. The name was saved as a number husband. As she stared at the screen, it rang loudly. It was her matchmaker, Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Davis yelled immediately. Chloe, what happened? My nephew said you never showed up. Did you back out? It hit Chloe like a lightning bolt. What, he never saw me? Did I marry the wrong guy? Who on earth did I just marry? Memories rushed back instantly. 7 years ago, on a stormy night, her cruel stepfather had drugged her. She was losing her mind. She stumbled through a hotel hallway. Damn it, he set me up. In a daze, she broke into a bridal suite. A handsome man lay unconscious on the bed. He was in a vegetative coma. The drug completely took over Chloe. She collapsed onto him. Help me, it hurts so much. She leaned down and kissed his lips. That night changed her destiny forever. When the man finally opened his eyes on the red sheets, the room was completely empty. Only a broken necklace was left behind. Flash forward to 1 week later, Chloe stood by the street, full of worry. A black Maybach pulled up. The window rolled down. Ryan's sharp profile showed in the dark. He got out and opened the door for her. He gently guided her into the back seat. The car started. Mrs. Davis's advice echoed in her ears. Since he is a wealthy New Yorker, just use it. Put the kids under his name so they can go to a good school. Sitting in the luxury car, Chloe's heart raced. He had a driver, assistants, and a mansion. Could a billionaire ever accept her children? Lost in thought, Ryan suddenly leaned close. Chloe panicked and tensed up. What are you doing? Ryan just pulled the seatbelt gently across her. You forgot your seatbelt. Chloe thanked him awkwardly. Outside was the bright New York skyline. Ryan asked smoothly, what kind of house do you like? Let's look at a few properties tonight. Hearing he was ready to buy a house, Chloe felt guilty. He was serious about this marriage. She couldn't lie to him anymore. Mr. Vance, actually, the brakes slammed hard. Chloe pitched forward violently. Ryan's face darkened. Stay in the car. He stepped out immediately. In the headlights, a small boy stood in the road. He wore a school uniform and carried a binder. Ryan walked over, confused. Hey kid, what is your name? Why are you alone in the street? Chloe looked at the boy's back from the car. Why did he look so familiar? The boy turned around proudly. He pointed a tiny finger at the sky. Since you asked nicely, I'll tell you. It was her eldest son, Mason. Mason excitedly held up his binder to Ryan. You are my daddy. That single word shocked both adults. Chloe stared at Ryan's face. The puzzle pieces fell into place. No wonder he looked familiar at City Hall. He was the man from 7 years ago. Ryan was the biological father of her son. Before she could process it, the scene cut to the hospital. Ryan held the DNA results. He pinned Chloe against the wall in pure rage. His eyes looked ready to kill. He gripped her chin tightly. The boy calls me dad. Are you still going to lie? Chloe, how many of my kids did you steal? How did you even do it? Tears welled up in Chloe's eyes. To protect the other kids, she lied. Just one. I swear, only Mason. Ryan didn't believe a word. Tell me exactly what happened that night. Chloe felt deeply humiliated. How could he ask this in front of others? The Vance family was known for being ruthless. If they knew the truth, they'd take all her kids, so she kept up the lie. I was drunk. I don't remember. The other twins are a year younger. They belong to my ex-boyfriend, and you still married me. You are letting my son call another man dad. Ryan completely lost his mind. His grip tightened as his eyes turned bloodshot. Chloe, you are playing with fire. Right then, the door burst open. Chloe's evil half-sister, Victoria, walked in. She looked at Chloe with pure disgust. Ryan, she is a disgrace. She was kicked out of the family years ago for sleeping around. Victoria was smirking inside. Chloe was the one who actually saved Ryan back then. But Victoria took the credit. She became the Vance family's savior. She pointed at Mason and snapped. You brat, calling everyone daddy, how shameless. Mason rolled his eyes and shot back. You are a mean witch. You are not sweet like my mommy. Daddy, don't ever like her. Ryan snapped. Enough. Suddenly Ryan's assistant rushed in with another report. Sir, please look at this. The DNA test shows the twins are also your biological sons. What? Victoria gasped, turning pale. Chloe realized her secret was out. She grabbed her friend Logan's hand. Logan, take the kids and run. Now, seeing Chloe grab another man, Ryan's rage exploded. He dragged Chloe back violently. He kissed her forcefully, bruising her lips. His eyes were wild with anger. Chloe, you belong to me now. Don't you dare look at another man. Chloe struggled and pushed him away. Ryan, you are a psycho. Let me go. Ryan laughed coldly, adjusting his suit. Name your price. I am buying full custody of Mason. A woman like you doesn't deserve to be a mother. Chloe laughed through her tears. I don't deserve it. Ryan stepped closer. You married me while hiding my own children. Chloe felt utter despair. The man was arrogant and paranoid, but his next words broke her heart completely. I'll give you a second choice. Live with me and Mason. I'll overlook your past. But those other two kids will never enter my house. Chloe screamed in tears. Ryan, do you even have a soul? Using children as a bargaining chip, she declared he would get absolutely nothing. Then she turned and walked away. As Ryan prepared to chase her, his phone rang. It was his powerful eldest brother. Ryan answered, confused. His brother's harsh voice boomed through the speaker. I heard you got married, little brother. A real man respects and protects his wife. If you make her cry on day one, you are no brother of mine. Ryan was completely stunned. He looked at the phone, then at Chloe's retreating back. Why did his cold brother care about Chloe? Chloe, what else are you hiding from me? Back at her small apartment, Chloe was frantically packing a suitcase. Her daughter, Harper, stood by heartbroken. Mommy, are we running away? Why can Mason live with Daddy, but we can't? Is it because I am a girl? Chloe's heart shattered into pieces. She knelt down and hugged Harper tightly. No, sweetie, that is not it. Mommy is just terrified of losing you. Harper wiped her mother's tears. Don't cry. Mommy, I don't need a dad. I just need you. Mason and the other twin rushed over. The kids hugged tightly. We will never leave Mommy. Suddenly, the front door clicked open. Mason walked in, holding Ryan's hand. Just then, a small white puppy ran down the stairs, barking. Mason knelt to pet the dog. Don't worry, Daddy. This is Brother 8. He doesn't bite. Ryan stood at the door, holding a luxury gift box. He frowned deeply. What did you just call it? Mason looked up innocently. Brother 8, he is part of the family now. You are our daddy, and he is our little brother. Ryan's face turned completely dark. He looked around the tiny rundown apartment. Hearing the dog called Brother 8, he totally misunderstood. He glared at Chloe with pure fury. Chloe, you raised my son in a dump like this. And you had 8 kids. You treat them like animals. Chloe was furious. It is just a cute nickname for a pet. Have you never had a dog before? You are ridiculous. Mason quickly intervened to stop the fight. Daddy, give Mommy the gift. Our brother Oliver picked it out for you. Ryan coldly handed over the white gift box with a gold ribbon. Chloe took the box coldly. She untied the ribbon right in front of him. Both of them stared inside as the lid lifted. In that exact second, Ryan's anger vanished, his pupils dilated in absolute shock. He froze like stone, completely speechless. What was inside the box? What was the secret his brother insisted on delivering back? In the living room, the kids were playing with the cat. One of the twins waved cheerfully. Hi, Daddy. Good to see you again. But Ryan felt only bitterness and anger. He looked at Chloe, thinking she had betrayed him. He thought the other kids belonged to someone else. He suddenly grabbed Mason's hand. Let's go. Chloe rushed to block him. Ryan, where are you taking my son? Ryan didn't look back. To where he belongs. Chloe held on to Mason, crying. I raised him alone. You can't just steal him. Ryan turned around, his eyes freezing cold. He grabbed Chloe and pinned her to the wall. You have plenty of kids. You won't miss one. Chloe fought back fiercely. Ryan, stop it. He is a human being, not your toy. The tension was suffocating. Little Mason stepped forward, tugging Ryan's coat. Daddy, please don't take me from Mommy, he sobbed. Seeing his son cry, Ryan's heart finally melted. He knelt down and wiped Mason's face. Okay, I won't take you. Let's go to the amusement park instead. Mason nodded happily. The other twin popped his head out. Amusement park, I want to go too. Chloe tried to seize the chance. Ryan, can you take him too? No, Ryan cut her off coldly. Why? Chloe asked. Ryan looked down at the twin. He is not mine. Let his real father take him. The twin got mad and put his hands on his hips. We are all yours. You are the dad to all 6 of us. Suddenly, the scene shifted. Mason was holding the luxury gift box. Chloe rushed over and covered Mason's eyes. She glared at Ryan in pure embarrassment. Ryan, are you a freak? Who gifts a photo like this? Inside the box was a shirtless photo of Ryan's abs. Mason kept yelling blindly, Mommy, Daddy has a 6-pack. Mason peeked through her fingers, laughing inside. It was Oliver's secret plan all along, to make Mommy fall for Daddy's looks. Ryan stood there, completely embarrassed. His billionaire pride was totally gone. Why would his brother send such a photo? He coughed nervously. I am sorry, I didn't know what was inside. Chloe blushed. You are a pervert. But in the next second, Ryan pulled her into his arms. He leaned down and kissed her deeply. Little Oliver caught the whole thing on his phone. He smiled, knowing his plan was working. Mommy and Daddy were finally getting closer. After the kiss, Chloe pushed him away, blushing. You can leave now, Ryan. But Ryan didn't move. Chloe panicked inside. The other kids were still hiding in the bedrooms. If he found them, everything would be ruined. Ryan's eyes landed on a suitcase on the floor. Children's clothes were spilling out. He walked over and picked up a school ID. It read, Manhattan Elementary name, Aiden Vance. Chloe lunged forward to cover the bag. Don't touch my things, Ryan sneered. I don't want your trash. Just then, a beautiful ragdoll cat walked out. Mason ran out right behind it. Chloe's heart skipped a beat. Cut to a luxury hotel hallway. Chloe, wearing her driver uniform, was on her phone. Hi, Miss Vance. I am your Uber driver, I am outside." Suddenly the door flew open. A hand reached out and shoved Chloe to the floor. Chloe fell hard onto the carpet. Three women in high heels stood over her. It was Victoria and her wealthy friends. They laughed sneeringly. "Look, it is the disgraced Chloe. She is nothing now. Victoria is the real heiress." Victoria walked up with a smirk. She poured a full cup of iced tea right over Chloe's head. The cold liquid drenched her hair and clothes. Chloe looked miserable and soaked. Victoria taunted her. "You look tired. Enjoy your favorite drink." A quick flashback showed Victoria's lavish party. Everyone was kissing her feet, thanking her family for a business bailout. They admired her expensive necklace. They assumed it was a gift from her wealthy boyfriend. Ethan back to reality. Drenched and humiliated, Chloe tried to leave, but Victoria blocked her again. "Leaving so soon? Today is my grand birthday bash. I invited you to watch my success." Just then the announcer shouted, welcoming Victoria and Ethan. Chloe turned her head in shock. Ethan was holding Victoria's waist tightly, seeing the man who once loved her now with her enemy. Chloe felt a sharp pain in her chest. Flashback to Ryan's cold questioning. What did the kid just say? Chloe had covered the boy's mouth quickly. "Nothing. He is just playing." Ryan had walked away, feeling shut out. Back in the present, at the hospital, Ryan was visiting his grandmother with Mason. The old woman suddenly panicked. She pushed Mason away, screaming, "No, you are not him. Where is my other grandson?" She grabbed Ryan, crying frantically. Did they hide him? Is he scared? Mason tried to comfort her. "Don't cry. Great, Grandma. What does he look like?" The old woman shakily pulled out her phone. She showed a photo from 2 days ago. Mason took the phone and gasped. The boy in the photo looked exactly like his twin brother. Ryan leaned in to look at the screen. A shockwave went through his chest, but he kept up his cold front. "I just don't want her playing with a stranger's kid," he thought. But seeing his grandmother so upset, he gave in. He dialed Chloe's number. "Stay with her, Mason," he instructed. He muttered to himself, "Chloe, this better not be a trap." The moment the call connected, Chloe was being pushed to the brink at the party. She screamed into her phone with all her might. "Ryan, save me, help me." Ryan's face changed instantly. At the party, the call cut off. Victoria walked up to Chloe like a proud peacock. "Oh, my poor sister, look at you." Chloe forced herself up, slapping Victoria's hand away. "Don't touch me." She turned to Ethan, her voice trembling. "Ethan, why are you with her?" Ethan didn't let her finish. He grabbed Chloe by the throat to please Victoria. The crowd watched coldly. Victoria's friend mocked her. "Your mother failed to marry into wealth. But our Victoria is going to be Mrs. Vance." Chloe erupted in rage. "Shut up. Your family would be bankrupt if my mom didn't save you. You guys are the ones who ruined her life." Victoria laughed maniacally. "Your mother is gone, and you are still defending her." She leaned into Chloe's ear, whispering the dark truth. "You think your mom died in a normal accident. Ethan, my dad, and we planned the whole thing." Chloe froze, her mind completely fracturing. "I'll destroy you both," Chloe screamed, fighting wildly. But Ethan pinned her harder against the wall. "Destroy us. Everyone here can crush you with one finger, along with those little brats of yours." Chloe cried tears of pure agony, staring at the traitor. "Ethan, my mother paid for your college. She treated you like a son. How can you be this evil?" Ethan snapped. "If she cared about me, she wouldn't have left everything to you." Victoria laughed hysterically. "You brought Ethan into our lives, Chloe. You are the one who caused your mother's downfall. Understand?" Chloe sank into overwhelming guilt and despair. "Mom, I am so sorry," she cried internally. They threw Chloe violently onto the floor. Victoria looked down at her like a bug. "You and your kids are finished today. Once you are gone, I'll make sure your kids end up on the streets. Every last last bit of your mother's bloodline will vanish. Chloe was kicked and beaten by the wealthy crowd. Finally, Ethan stepped on her back, pinning her to the floor. The party music kept playing cheerfully. Ethan dragged a bloody Chloe toward the birthday cake. Victoria took a bite and smiled coldly. "Why aren't you singing happy birthday to me, sister?" Chloe's face was covered in blood, but her eyes burned with hatred. "I want you to pay for this, Victoria. Do you even know who the father of my kids is? If you touch them," Victoria cut her off arrogantly. "I don't care who he is. Your kids are about to be broken pieces." Victoria grabbed Chloe's hair and slammed her head into the floor. "You dare threaten me? I'll end them right now." Just then, the doors swung open. A henchman rushed in. "Miss Victoria, we found two of the kids." Flashback to when Chloe's mother was alive. In a luxury office, her mother signed a massive corporate contract. A younger Chloe sat across from her, confused. "Mom, our family business is doing great. Why open a secret fund?" Her mother stopped writing and smiled warmly. "Silly girl, this is my secret backup plan just for you. When you marry, this billion-dollar fund will be your dowry. My hard work will always be your strongest shield." Back to the present, Chloe looked at the arrogant Victoria and laughed coldly. She finally realized something. Victoria hadn't stolen her life. She was just picking up the garbage Chloe threw away. Victoria was enraged by her laugh. The guards dragged the frightened twins into the room. Chloe's heart broke as she saw them. Victoria noticed there were only two kids. "Where are the other four?" she roared. The guard broke into a cold sweat. "They were too fast, and they set a dog on us. The others escaped." Victoria slapped the guard hard across the face. "Useless, find them now." The brave little twin hugged Chloe, crying. "You hurt our mommy. Our brother Oliver knows, and he will destroy you." Victoria sneered and grabbed the boy's hair, pulling him away. "Let him go," Chloe screamed. Victoria reached to scratch the little girl's face. Chloe completely broke down, kneeling and begging on the floor. "Stop. Please don't hurt my daughter. She is just a child." Seeing the proud Chloe kneeling like a dog, Victoria laughed hysterically. She lifted her white dress, stepping on a cart. She pointed between her legs with a cruel grin. "You want to save your kids? Crawl under my legs. Every time you crawl, I'll release one child. Do it." The crowd laughed uproariously, pushing Chloe forward. "Crawl. It is a privilege for someone like you. Hurry up." Chloe knelt among the shattered glass, her heart bleeding. The little twin yelled in anger. "Our brother will make you pay." Victoria rolled her eyes. "I'll deal with him after your mother." To protect her babies, Chloe closed her eyes. Tears of pure humiliation ran down her face. She clenched her fists and whispered, "Fine, I'll do it." But just as her head lowered to give up her final piece of dignity, a voice like rolling thunder boomed from the entrance. "Don't you dare kneel." The heavy doors flew open with a loud crash. With that powerful command, Ryan stepped in, holding a baseball bat. He looked like an angry god descending from heaven. He glanced coldly at the crowd, then picked up his phone. "Bring my security team to room 908. Time for a show." The evil Victoria still didn't realize her doom. She tried to use her fake savior status as a shield. She pointed at her jade necklace as proof, but Chloe let out a sharp, cold laugh. "I don't care who saved Ryan back then, but that necklace belonged to my mother. It is my family heirloom." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Memories flashed in his mind like a movie. He finally remembered the night he woke up in the hospital. The voice, the scent, it was Chloe. Ethan tried to step in, raising his hand to strike Chloe. This completely unleashed Ryan's fury. He swung the bat hard, knocking Ethan straight into the sofa. "Who do you think you are? Didn't you hear her?" Ryan roared. Before the shocked crowd could breathe, Ryan's brothers burst through the doors. They were fully armed, looking lethal and sharp. With suppressed weapons and sharp blades, they surrounded the room. One brother immediately pressed a blade against Ethan's neck. Another brother asked curiously, "Ryan, who is this lovely lady to you?" Chloe spoke up proudly, "We are married, and we share children." Victoria and her friend kept talking trash. "She is a loose woman with a bunch of nameless brats." Ryan's anger completely overflowed. "Shut up," he roared, shoving Victoria hard to the ground. He looked down at her with pure hatred, gritting his teeth. "Victoria, I remember everything now. It wasn't you that night. You dared to play me for a fool. You are done." The truth was finally out in the open. Seeing Victoria fall, her friend tried to push Chloe, but Chloe caught her hair instantly. She delivered a brutal ringing slap to her face. Then another backhand slap, leaving the woman helpless. Chloe's voice was razor sharp. "That is for being an ungrateful snake." Ryan's brother handed over a laptop. "Ryan, our eldest brother sent this drive. It has all the dirty secrets of every family in this room. If we release it, their businesses will vanish overnight." Ryan stared at them like a judge delivering a death sentence. "Not a single one of you escapes today." The arrogant bullies completely lost their minds with fear. They dropped to their knees, begging Chloe for mercy. Seeing everything crumble, Victoria drew a small knife in madness, but Chloe caught her wrist easily, disarming her instantly. After the high-powered justice was served, Chloe clapped her hands. She picked up her bag and looked at Ryan. "It is getting late. I need to go home and help my kids with homework." As she turned to leave, Ryan's brother blocked her path. He respectfully handed over a phone. "Miss Chloe, please hold on. Our boss insists on speaking with you." Chloe took the phone confused. "Hello." A sweet, childish voice came through the line. "Mommy, it is me." Chloe froze to the spot, her eyes wide with utter shock. "Oliver," she gasped. Chloe didn't just have 5 kids. There was a mysterious, powerful 6th child, Oliver. What was his connection to Ryan's powerful older brother? How would the story turn next? The real game was just beginning. Chloe was secretly talking on the phone inside a room. On the other end, her son Oliver whispered to her, "Keep it down, Mommy. Don't blow our cover." It turned out Oliver was the mastermind behind the Vance Group's ally. The little guy thought Ryan wasn't treating his mommy well enough. He was planning a massive test for his billionaire dad. "Once we secure the multi-billion fund, we'll buy him out." Chloe smiled, wanting to hear more of the plan, but the door burst open. Ryan and his brother walked in, faces grim. Chloe remained calm, threw a few sharp words at Ryan, and walked out elegantly. But as she left, a card fell from her jacket. Ryan's brother picked it up. It was a school ID, grade 1, Aiden Vance. Ryan stared at the photo, in deep shock. The boy looked exactly like him. Mason was his oldest, so who on earth was Aiden? To find the truth, Ryan drove to the private academy. Inside a classroom, a bitter scene was taking place. Little Leo was standing up for himself. "Our background doesn't define our future," he told the class, but a rich kid named Toby stood on a chair, mocking him. "Your mom is just an Uber driver. You can't even afford this tuition." Furious, Leo gave Toby a push. Toby screamed and made a huge scene. "Your driver mom can't afford to pay for this." The snobbish teacher, Miss Smith, rushed over in her high heels. Without asking questions, she grabbed Leo roughly. "Apologize to Toby right now." In that crucial second, Leo's twin brother, Aiden, stood in front of him. Aiden refused to apologize. "Toby started it. He insulted our family. Why are you always taking the side of the rich, Miss Smith?" Hit where it hurt. Miss Smith lost her temper, waving her ruler. "I will cancel your grades. You'll be expelled." She threw away her mask completely. Toby's mom donated $200,000 to this school. "Kids like you are meant to stay at the bottom of society." As Miss Smith screamed, she didn't notice the 2 men at the door. One was the school dean, Mr. Miller. The other was Ryan Vance, wearing a long black coat, radiating pure power. Mr. Miller pointed at the brave little boy. "Sir, that is Aiden Vance, the boy you are looking for." Then he dropped a bombshell, and he has an identical twin brother in the next class. Seeing his twin sons humiliated by a petty teacher, Ryan's rage peaked. Miss Smith kept digging her own grave. "I'll make sure no school in New York accepts you." Before this fight, she had shown her true colors during attendance. When a wealthy kid mentioned going to an elite prep school, she smiled warmly. "Say hello to your professor mother for me, sweetie." When it was Toby's turn, she fawned over him completely. Toby bragged about moving to London for studies. Miss Smith showered him with praise. "I absolutely love the luxury cosmetics your mother sent me. I hope your father gets promoted at the Vance Group soon." Her brown, nosing face was sickening. But when she turned to Aiden, her face soured. Aiden mentioned his mom hadn't picked a school yet. Toby immediately taunted him. "Drivers don't belong in New York." Miss Smith joined in with a sneer. "Maybe you should move back to the countryside." Despite the insults, the twins held their heads high. "We can learn anywhere. Our mom works hard to feed us. We are perfectly happy," Toby screamed. "But you are still poor." Little Leo pulled his brother's sleeve, looking at Ryan at the door. "Aiden, that is the mean man who hurt Mommy. We can't trust him." Miss Smith dragged Mr. Miller into the room, demanding a permanent stain on the twins' records. Leo tried to take the blame, but Miss Smith kept bringing up the donation. Mr. Miller, trying to please his donor, ordered Aiden to call his mother. "Tell her to come here and kneel for forgiveness." Toby and Miss Smith smirked in victory. Seeing his sons forced to kneel, Ryan couldn't stay silent. He walked into the room with a freezing aura. "Is this how you run a school, forcing children to kneel?" The arrogant Miss Smith and Mr. Miller didn't care about the outsider. "Stay out of school business." Mr. Miller warned. Miss Smith dialed Chloe's number, muttering insults about single moms. Aiden yelled, trying to protect his hardworking mother. Toby kept insulting her job. Looking at his brilliant, hurting sons, Ryan felt deep guilt and anger. He turned around and declared word by word, "An outsider, I am their father." The words struck like thunder, leaving the staff speechless. Just then Toby's father, a director at the company, walked in with his wealthy wife. The director yelled, wanting revenge for his son. Ryan let out a cold laugh and called him by his full name. The director thought Ryan was scared and raised a fist before he could get close. Ryan delivered a powerful kick. The man flew back several feet, crashing into the play area. Ryan looked down at him coldly. "You have 10 minutes to beg my sons for forgiveness." Groaning in the toys, the director demanded to know Ryan's position at the firm. His clueless wife rushed over, screaming insults at Ryan's plain clothes. She dragged Chloe's name through the mud, calling her lower class. The family and Miss Smith kept mocking the twins. They probably can't even afford a good meal. Aiden shook with anger, defending his mommy. Ryan lost his final thread of patience. He pulled out his phone and called corporate headquarters. Fire him immediately and sue him for fraud and damaging the company name. When the director first entered, he had tried to punch Ryan. Ryan had crushed his wrist, making him drop to his knees in pain. His wife and Miss Smith had demanded 30 bows of apology from Ryan. "Accept your place if you have no money," Miss Smith had said, but Ryan ignored the clowns completely. He knelt down in front of Leo and Aiden. He gently wiped their tears, telling them their mommy did an amazing job. Then he gave them a lesson they'd never forget. A real man never kneels out of fear. If someone crosses you, you take them down completely. Just then, the school principal rushed into the room sweating. Miss Smith thought her savior arrived and demanded Ryan be thrown out. Instead, the principal delivered a massive slap across her face. She spun around, completely dazed. In front of the terrified staff, the principal bowed deeply to Ryan. "Mr. Vance, I am so sorry for the delay." Hearing Mr. Vance, Miss Smith froze like stone. Mr. Millard trembled so hard, he almost collapsed. He slapped Miss Smith to stop her from talking, then handed in his resignation. He ran out of the room to save his own skin. With the threat gone, the twins looked up with bright eyes. They touched Ryan's face, realizing the resemblance. "Are you really our daddy?" they whispered. They even spilled Oliver's secret, saying he looked just like Ryan. Holding his long-lost sons, the billionaire CEO felt tears in his eyes. He apologized deeply, hugging them tight. When they asked if he would take them away from Mommy, his heart broke. He finally understood the pain Chloe had carried alone. "I will never separate you from her," he promised gently. After sending the kids to play, Ryan's warmth vanished. He finally realized the truth. Chloe wasn't looking for a rich man out of vanity. She just needed a local status so her kids could get an education. Ryan felt a mix of heartbreak and fury. He turned to his assistant with a sharp command: "Bring Chloe to me, right now." Meanwhile, the director and his wife still thought Ryan was bluffing. Little Leo asked if Ryan was really the big boss. Ryan looked at his son with a warm, proud smile. Miss Smith kept mocking them, saying Ryan taught the kids to lie. But Mr. Miller was sweating bullets, sensing something terrible. He told her to bring the principal back. The director held his phone, mocking Ryan, but in the next second, his phone rang loudly. The screen showed Managing Director. It was his ultimate downfall. After the call, the director turned pale as a corpse. His knees buckled, and he fell heavily to the floor in front of Ryan. He dragged his arrogant wife down with him. He delivered a hard slap to her face, then started banging his head on the floor. He was fired, blacklisted, and facing a $300 million lawsuit. He was completely ruined. Toby burst into tears, apologizing to the twins. Seeing the bullies get their karma, smart little Aiden took Ryan's hand. Since they look down on drivers, let them work entry-level jobs. Mommy says every honest job deserves respect. Ryan smiled proudly at his son's wisdom. "Get out," he barked. The couple ran away in terror, leaving Mr. Miller frozen in the corner. He stared at the powerful billionaire, too terrified to speak a single word. The woman slapped the billionaire CEO hard across the face. She sneered and declared, "I quit." Just seconds ago, Ethan Vance, CEO of the Vance Group, was casually folding a paper airplane. He looked at his assistant, Chloe Sullivan, with pure arrogance. "I know you are in love with me, Chloe, but these pathetic stunts to get my attention only make me despise you more. You are just a replacement. You will never be my true Serena." The old Chloe would have burst into tears, but the Chloe standing here today just laughed out loud. "Ethan, you really think highly of yourself, don't you? If it wasn't for the paycheck, do you honestly think I'd look twice at you? I never loved you." Ethan slammed the desk in a fury. "Chloe, get the hell out." Chloe smirked, with pleasure. She turned gracefully on her stilettos and walked away. Ethan thought she was just playing hard to get, but before he could finish his threats, Chloe stormed back and pointed right at his nose. "You are nothing but a toxic, brainless narcissist," she snapped. She snatched the credit card off his desk, warning him that next time she saw him, she'd beat him up. Only an idiot would stay and keep playing his little game. The scene cuts back to Chloe's painful past. Once Ethan coldly threw $1 million check and a house key at her. He brutally informed her that their little arrangement was over. At that exact moment, Chloe was holding an early-stage stomach cancer diagnosis. She was weeping in despair in a bathtub. To make things worse, Ethan was out on a romantic date with his first love, Serena Sullivan. Serena sipped her coffee, acting like a total victim. She lied to Ethan, claiming Chloe's mother was a gold digger and that Chloe was was greedy and cheap. Just as Ethan swallowed her lies, his phone buzzed. It was a text from his HR manager. Chloe had officially resigned. Ethan's face went pale. He couldn't sit still for another second. He ditched his beloved Serena and rushed back to the office, leading to that epic slap in the opening scene. Now completely free, Chloe wasn't about to let anyone stop her. She threw on her sunglasses and headed straight to a real estate agency. The mansion Ethan gave her was worth $50 million. Chloe didn't even blink. Sell it right now for $20 million, cash only. Why lose money over an ex? She didn't want his house. She wanted the cash, with $20 million instantly wired to her bank account. Chloe was thrilled. A toxic guy is like expired milk, she muttered. Just throw him out. But as she left the real estate office, she ran right into Serena. Serena put on a fake smile, acting like a winner, and told Chloe to walk away. Chloe wasn't having any of it. She ripped off her sunglasses and snapped. Who do you think you are? You are just a mistake. Your mother knew my father was married and still ruined our family. Your weak heart is pure karma. Serena couldn't handle the truth and clutched her chest, having a panic attack. Ethan arrived just in time to catch Serena, glaring fiercely at Chloe. In the past, Chloe would have tried to explain herself, but now, she didn't even look back. She just laughed and walked away. Back at the office to pack her things, Chloe took her revenge to the next level. As her coworkers gathered around to watch, she leaned in and whispered a massive rumor. Our dear CEO has a hidden cross-dressing fetish. Plus, he has got some serious issues in the bedroom, and maybe even an illness. The entire office went dead silent. Not a single keyboard clicked. Right outside the door, Ethan was standing there with a pitch-black face, hearing every single word. Chloe, where did you get the nerve? But the best part was yet to come. While Ethan was driving Serena, his phone buzzed with an alarming notification. Your credit card has just been charged $100,000 at the Diamond Club. Inside the VIP lounge of the high-end club, Chloe's best friend, Anna, was screaming at the top of her lungs. Drink up, girls, let's celebrate Chloe finally leaving that toxic ex. Confetti rained down as a group of handsome male models surrounded Chloe, giving her shoulder massages and pouring her drinks. Chloe completely let loose, chugging straight from the bottle as the party went wild. Ethan couldn't stand the thought of being humiliated like this. He literally dumped Serena on the side of the road, slammed the gas, and stormed into the club. Serena watched his car speed away, gripping her seatbelt in absolute rage. The truth was, she wasn't the girl who saved Ethan from that house fire years ago. It was Chloe. She had to keep this a secret at all costs. Ethan could never find out. By now, Ethan had kicked the VIP lounge door open, radiating pure fury. His face was tense as he scanned the room and roared, "Everyone get the hell out!" The models and Anna scrambled out of the room in terror. Before running, Anna managed to slide Chloe's purse back into her hands. Chloe was completely wasted by this point. She looked at Ethan with blurry, drunken eyes and reached out to pinch his chin. "Wow, you're so hot," she giggled. "Come play with me, handsome." Ethan's veins popped with anger. He grabbed her wrists tight. "Chloe, stop pushing my buttons." Chloe fought back wildly, acting like a feral cat, and bit down hard on Ethan's neck. Ethan groaned in pain, barked an order, scooped the reckless woman into his arms, and carried her out of the club. Suddenly, the screen freezes, revealing a massive secret. Flashback to the night Chloe was crying in the bathtub. When she opened her eyes, she saw lines of digital text floating in the air. At that moment, she completely awakened. She realized her world was actually a terrible cliché romance drama called Bound by Fate. The CEO's broken bride, and she, Chloe Sullivan, was the tragic female lead destined to suffer for 100 episodes before dying of stomach cancer. In the final episode, the toxic CEO would live happily ever after with his first love. Looking at the real diagnosis in her hand, Chloe laughed out loud. If this is the script, then I am done being a victim. I will rewrite my own story. She threw the medical report into the fire, her eyes burning with fierce determination. The next morning, Chloe woke up in a luxury hotel bed. Her head was pounding, and memories of her wild night came rushing back like a movie trailer. Slapping the CEO during her resignation, selling the house for quick cash, exposing the green tea villainous, telling the entire office about the CEO's fake bedroom issues, and finally biting Ethan's neck in the club last night. Chloe gasped, covering her face in pure embarrassment. Oh my God, she groaned, I went way too far. This is bad. The ultimate revenge drama had just begun. In the Sullivan family mansion, a grand celebration party turned into an absolute nightmare. Chloe made a dramatic entrance, throwing flyers all over the room. Armed with a megaphone, she exposed her family's darkest secrets in front of New York's high society. Look at this man, a nobody who married a rich woman for her money, cheated on her, had a secret child, and drove his own wife to her death. Her words cut like a knife, destroying her father Arthur's fake reputation instantly. Arthur lost his mind with rage and lunged to choke her, screaming, I should have left you to die in those mountains years ago. Chloe didn't flinch, she slapped him right back. Screw you, I crawled out of those mountains myself, you had nothing to do with it. During the struggle, Chloe's bow earring was ripped off, revealing a distinct scar on her earlobe. Ethan, who was standing nearby, saw it instantly. His mind suddenly exploded with a wave of lost memories. Years ago, when he was trapped in those mountains, the little girl who saved him had the exact same bleeding scar on her ear. The girl he had been protecting all these years, Serena, was an absolute fraud. The real savior standing in front of him was Chloe. Realizing her secret was about to be exposed, Serena panicked. To distract Ethan, she used her old trick and faked a fainting spell, clutching her chest. Her parents screamed in terror, rushing her straight to the hospital. In the hospital hallway, Chloe crossed her arms, watching the pathetic family drama unfold. The doctor soon walked out with the test results. Her heart is fine, but her kidneys are failing. We need more tests. Inside the room, Serena held Ethan's hand, crying like a tragic victim. Ethan, if I get really sick, will you leave me? Though Ethan now doubted the past, he looked at her and said, no matter what happens, I will stay. Outside the door, Chloe's eyes were cold as ice. Everything you stole from me, she whispered, I am taking it all back. But the real twist happened next. Later, at a rooftop restaurant, Ethan confronted Chloe immediately. He demanded to know if she was the one who leaked Serena's illness to his mother. He assumed Chloe was just trying to ruin his relationship again. Before Chloe could even answer, Mrs. Vance calmly took a sip of her tea and glared at her son. Stop making a fool of yourself, Ethan. You think everyone is as blind as you. Our family owns that hospital. I checked the records myself. Why would Chloe need to tell me anything? Ethan was left completely speechless by his own mother. Mrs. Vance became Chloe's ultimate defender. She turned to a pale Serena with absolute disgust, always playing the victim, day after day. It is pathetic. It's a good thing our family owns a funeral home too. Maybe I should reserve a spot for you early, just in case you drop dead tomorrow. Chloe, who was casually eating watermelon nearby, almost choked out of laughter. She absolutely loved Ethan's mother. The humiliation didn't stop there. In front of Ethan, Mrs. Vance took Chloe's hand. She slid a priceless, heirloom emerald bangle onto Chloe's wrist. From now on, you are the only daughter-in-law I accept, she declared. Ethan's face face looked like he had just swallowed a fly. He tried to step forward to argue with Chloe, but Chloe's eyes went sharp. Without saying a word, she grabbed a glass of water from the table and threw it right into Ethan's face. "Since your eyes don't work, let this water wash them out for you." That single splash of water shattered the Sullivan family's dreams entirely. Ethan couldn't believe his sophisticated mother was forcing him to marry Chloe. When he confronted her, Mrs. Vance immediately started acting, pretending to have high blood pressure and chest pain. Ethan told her to stop faking it, which made her throw fruits at him in anger. She gave him a strict ultimatum: if you don't bring Chloe back as your wife, don't ever come home. To Mrs. Vance, Chloe's fierce, fearless attitude was exactly like her own when she was young. As for Serena, Mrs. Vance couldn't stand her. She swore that if Ethan ever married Serena, she would hang herself from the chandelier. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Chloe walked down the lonely hallway. She stared at her cancer re-examination report, feeling completely helpless, wondering how much time she had left. Just then, Dr. Sam, her handsome primary doctor, walked up with a warm smile. It turned out Sam had gone to a college right next to Chloe's high school and had noticed her back then, but their sweet moment was quickly cut short when Ethan and Serena walked over. Serena immediately made a passive-aggressive comment, asking if Chloe was dating the doctor now. Chloe didn't hold back. "Who I date is none of your business." To get the heirloom bangle back, Ethan arranged to meet Chloe at an outdoor cafe. He aggressively demanded to know why she was wearing his family's treasure. Chloe mocked him, saying his mother practically forced it onto her wrist. As they argued and tangled, Ethan's luxury watch got caught in Chloe's dress. Ethan coldly ordered her to take the bangle off immediately. Seeing his attitude, Chloe decided to put on a dramatic show of her own. She cried out loud, complaining that he used to call her his sweetheart, but now that he had a new lover, he was taking back his tokens of affection. Just as Ethan thought she was just being difficult, Chloe realized the bangle was actually stuck on her wrist. Ethan returned home defeated, finding his mother relaxing on the sofa with a magazine. Before he could complain, Mrs. Vance casually revealed she had bought that entire cafe 2 days ago. She had watched his embarrassing behavior on the security cameras. Ethan criticized her for giving away such a valuable family heirloom, but his mother remained firm, stating the bangle belonged to her true daughter-in-law. She gave him exactly 3 days to bring Chloe back. Later, the drama escalated in the hospital hallway again. Serena approached Chloe, pretending to apologize for how Ethan had treated her as a replacement. She acted like a mature, giving sister, saying she was glad Chloe found a new man. Chloe just let out a cold laugh. "We'll see who the real replacement is." Then Chloe intentionally raised her hand, showing off the priceless jade bangle. Serena recognized it instantly and turned pale with pure jealousy and rage. The news reached Ethan fast. Inside his car, Ethan pinned Chloe's wrist down, his voice dripping with jealousy as he told her to stay away from Dr. Sam. Chloe fought back, demanding to know what right he had to control her. Ethan arrogantly claimed he had every right. Right then, Dr. Sam walked past the car wearing his brown coat. To cut off the doctor's hopes and mark his territory, Ethan grabbed Chloe's face and kissed her forcefully. Outside the window, Dr. Sam watched with a broken heart and turned away in disappointment. Meanwhile, at the Sullivan house, Serena and her mother were plotting on the stairs. Serena couldn't understand how Chloe got her hands on that royal jade bangle. Her mother reassured her, believing that as long as Serena kept Ethan's heart, the title of Mrs. Vance would eventually be hers. But as they turned around, they saw their maid working while wearing Serena's brand new, limited edition designer dress. Serena lost her mind, screaming to know who had entered her room. The mother and daughter slammed the bedroom door open to find absolute chaos. Chloe was standing on the bed, cold and expressionless, smashing Serena's luxury vases and tearing her clothes. Serena screamed, asking if she had lost her mind. Chloe stepped off the bed with pure boss energy. She told them she had already ordered them to clear out the room, and since they didn't move, she did it herself. Serena shook with rage looking at her ruined designer wardrobe. Chloe kept pushing, mocking that she had donated the decent clothes to charity. As for the trashy, revealing ones, she gave them to the maids for housework. Serena was pushed to her limit, screaming, "I'll kill you," as she lunged at Chloe, and the two went into a wild catfight. After the brutal fight, Serena collapsed on the bed crying in a total mess. Chloe calmly fixed her clothes with a smile, saying she loved the welcome party. Arthur stormed into the room, furious, demanding to know what Chloe was doing. Chloe's aura completely dominated the room as she declared the entire house now belonged to her. If anyone annoyed her, she would throw them out instantly. She hit Arthur right where it hurt, asking if his company was failing and if he was desperate for a contract with the Vance Group. Chloe smiled coldly, reminding him that Mrs. Vance only recognized her as her daughter-in-law. She warned Arthur that if he wanted to save his business, he better get his wife and daughter out of her house right now. At the dining table, Arthur anxiously drank red wine while explaining the crisis to Serena. If they didn't seal the deal with the Vance Group, their family would face total bankruptcy. Serena confidently comforted her father, claiming Ethan loved her so much he would definitely sign the deal. Arthur was overjoyed, believing his daughter could handle everything, and handed the entire project over to her. However, Chloe had already made her move. Inside Ethan's grand office, the recently injured CEO was leaning back in his chair, wearing a neck brace. Chloe walked in wearing a stunning black dress, holding a beautifully packaged mini cake. Ethan looked at the cake with contempt, mocking her unprofessional approach to a business meeting. Chloe remained completely calm and presented a brilliant, highly professional development plan for the Hamptons project under her own name. Ethan leaned back, watching her with a dark smirk, saying countless people wanted this deal. Then, his eyes narrowed as he offered a dangerous, tempting proposition. "Become my secret lover," he whispered, "and this project is yours." The story opened with Chloe storming into Ethan's office to reclaim her mother's stolen inheritance. Ethan was sitting there looking weak in his neck brace. But Chloe was a force to be reckoned with, declaring she would give herself to whoever helped her win the project. Hearing this, Ethan's toxic possessiveness flared up instantly. He blocked her path, claiming nobody could do a better job than him. Right there, they signed a 6-month secret lover contract, but Chloe set strict terms. He could not marry Serena during these 6 months, and she would always be the one in control yet. The moment the verbal agreement was sealed, they turned on each other. Ethan's fragile ego took over, and he insulted Chloe, saying she would sell herself to any man with enough cash. That completely crossed the line for Chloe. She slammed a heavy file folder right into his face, screaming through her tears. "For 3 long years, you only gave me orders. Did you ever care about my feelings even once?" With that, Chloe stormed out, leaving Ethan completely stunned and frozen in his office. Despite the screaming match, Ethan's mind was completely consumed by Chloe. Later that day, he sat at his desk smiling like an idiot at the grape cake she brought. He proudly thought to himself that she was just acting tough, knowing he hated sweets, but making it anyway because she secretly cared about him. But when he confidently walked out to the main office floor, he saw his female employees eating the exact same mass-produced cake. The absolute embarrassment hit him instantly. To cover up his bruised ego, the arrogant CEO barked a ridiculous order to his assistant. "Buy every single mini cake in this building and bring them to my office right now." On the other side of town, Ethan's mother was proving to be Chloe's ultimate fan. She took Chloe on a massive shopping spree in her living room, buying designer bags, haute couture coats, and even $100 million private jet without